Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lesboogie One-on-One show right here on Fresh Nation Radio, WJON. We're back again this week with another exciting show. I'm real excited tonight. I have some special guests coming on, and we're going to bring them on in a little while. But just to get started, as always, I want to say hello to my co-host, Ms. Gimenez. How you doing? What's going on?
I am well. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. I'm good. I'm good. I'm ready to go tonight. I'm ready to have a great show.
Me too. I got 2 weeks off from school and I'm ready to party.
Are you ready to party, huh? Okay.
And
That
I
sounds
got
good.
straight A the whole time.
Straight
Straight A.
A's. I don't know how
Straight
you do it. You got a busy schedule. You really take care of business, huh?
A. I'm my own worst critic because if I don't get an A, I obsess about that. I obsess about the papers. It's a competition with myself. I don't put it on anybody else, and I'm the first one to say don't be hard on yourself. But I like having A's.
Okay. Okay. Well, explain a little bit what you're studying for, and let the people know what you're up to because you got a lot of degrees going on here. So what's
As
happening?
you can see in the back there, yes. So I am getting my PhD in business with the
Oh,
emphasis in
good.
human resources and diversity. And it's not an ED because there's a difference between an ED and a PhD. A PhD is the highest level in your profession that you can get. And so I decided I wanted it. And so
Mm,
that's what I'm doing. It's an 8-year journey if you're not going full time. So I'm about 4 years in. It
wow.
takes about 2 years to so there people think that you go through all of these classes, then you write a paper and that's it. No, you go through all those classes. You take there's 4 residencies where you are taught how to write a dissertation. Then after you go through all of those classes and all of those residencies, you have to do your, and I always get them confused, your prospectus, which
Hmm.
is going before the board and talking about what you'd like to research. And then once that approves, then you do the proposal. And the proposal, I believe, is when you are detailing what kind of research you're doing, what method you're using, if it's going to be quantitative, which is, of course, the data,
Hmm.
qualitative, which are surveys and literature reviews, or mixed, where you do both. And so you come with the proposal of how your research is going to be. Once that is approved, then you write the rest of your dissertation. And all of that is part of the full dissertation. So that's maybe, I believe it's 20, 10, it's either 10, 20, and then there's like another 100 and something pages. But it is a lot of work. And
I'm
the
tired
whole
already. I'm
8 years.
tired already.
Yes. So this is
Wow.
the last of my academia journey. But the good thing about it and the crazy thing about it is because of the intensity of the work, you're actually awarded another master's degree. So when I graduate with my
Oh wow.
PhD, I'll have 3 master's degrees along with it. So I don't know if y'all can see. Let me see if I can lift this up. But you see right there, there's a bachelor's and a master's next to each other.
I
That's from
see that. Yes, I do see that. Yeah.
Then
Mhm.
the big one right
Nice.
there is another master's from NYU. And
Okay.
then I'm gonna have to figure out somewhere else in this office where I'm gonna put another master's and the PhD. And then that's it in terms of that. So
Sounds good.
what's up,
All right.
Tattletale?
What's
Zed.
going on, Tattletale? My man, Tattletale. Come on, brother.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Congratulations, but don't come over here and try to make me feel inferior because all I got is a GED. That ain't right, Dahlia. That ain't right.
That's on
You,
you.
and come up using all these words that I can't even pronounce.
That's on you. Cause listen, you had how many houses before I bought my first house? 20?
Don't.
You had how see he only tells you about the backstory, but he don't tell you about the times where I got laid off from work. I'm calling him up going, I don't know how I'm gonna get stuff done, but it always happened. You know,
And let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question about that. Now you
mhm,
said that it always happens, right? How do you think it always happens? How
that
does that
something
work?
because
Yeah.
life is
How does it
ebbs
work
and
out for you?
life is ebbs and flows. There's good, you're going to go up, you're going to go down, you're going to go up, you're going to go down. And you just
Okay.
hope that with each lesson that happens, that you learn that something is going to happen to change the trajectory of what you're doing. You just have to make sure that you're prepared to pivot when you're supposed to.
Okay. Good point. Tattletale, what's your
Mm.
opinion on that? Does things just happen the way they're supposed
Well,
to?
yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you this:
Talk to me.
the the mind is very powerful, and scientists and doctors they really don't know where the mind is located at in the body, but it is as if the mind is in tune with the universe. All right, and when you're positive, and you know you can do this, and you know it's going to happen, it
Right.
will happen. All right, that's what I tell people: you have to remain positive. You
See,
know,
I agree to a certain extent. There are things in life that are going to happen just because that is a part of life. I didn't know I would get laid off, but I did, and so there are things that come at you because they're just a part of life. Things happen. You don't you
things
Exactly.
have
happen.
to always make sure you're in the best place. And I'm not saying things happen like it's just out of the blue, but things do happen. And so a lot of good things happen, a lot of crazy and bad things may happen, but it is how you approach in the positive way that gets you through it. And Tattletale, I've always said when things were down, this is only going to be for a brief period.
Mhm.
Things are going to happen. This is I keep it moving. I keep it moving.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
And
you
called
know,
it's
one.
called life on life's terms.
life
Yeah,
on life terms.
That
Exactly.
happens.
once I climbed Mount Everest because I wanted to talk to this great guru, and when I got to the top of Mount Everest, I asked him, what's the meaning of
Oh
life?"
my
He
goodness.
says, "Oh, little one, listen to me very closely." He said, "It is 10% action and 95% reaction. So the way you react to things, that is going to be your outcome." So he said to me, "So always be positive. Very
But you know
good
what?
for you."
You know what though? Seriously?
Through the
On a ser-
craziness, there's grain of truth in there. But go ahead.
Yeah, there's some truth in that somewhere. But the real deal is this: is that life on life terms, things happen. I mean, just
Mhm.
the natural order of things happen. But here again, you have to make decisions on the opportunities that you're given. And
Exactly.
you got to make the right choices. You can go left or you can go right. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And
Mhm.
once you're an adult, you know right from wrong. And even as a child, you know right from wrong. But when you
Mm-hmm.
start making moves out here, you know what's right and you know what's wrong. You know what's for you, what's
Mm-hmm.
not. You know what you need to do or what you have to do. You understand all that. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? You understand all that stuff. So it's kind of hard you can't blame anybody because you have decisions that you have to make.
There
Exactly.
you
Period.
go.
Exactly.
And to be honest with you, opportunity is always given to you. It's what you do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you lose your job, you get evicted or whatever. These type of things, you really put things in place so that doesn't happen.
Right.
You're really supposed to
Mm-hmm.
put things in place so those kind of things don't happen. Those mundane things that if it happened to you in the past, you never allow that to happen again. If you've been through certain
Exactly.
things, never
No, the
repeat that.
consequences of those things you never allow to happen. The bad consequences. So, when I first got laid off, was around the same time I started getting sick. And those things happen. I went through a 401k. I went through my savings. I went through
Mm-hmm.
everything. And it got to the point where my brothers stepped in and helped.
Yep.
I got it together. I went back to work. And I made sure I hustled, and I hustled a lot. And, things happen again. The market went bad and you get laid off. It happens. But at that point, I had already decided I didn't want to have to worry about how do I pay my bills. I didn't want to have to worry about whether my brothers were going to have to help me again. And at some point, you have to say, I'm an adult now. I can't expect people to help me, especially when you're a single woman living by yourself and your siblings have their families. I can't expect them to drop everything for their families and try to help me figure this out. I got to pull up my big girl panties again. And so each
Mm-hmm.
time it was, what are you going to have if something changes the trajectory of where you're going. And that brings us to this election that happened. And so,
Uh-oh.
yes.
Uh-oh.
So I will say this. Remember, I said I didn't want to think about the worst that night. I'm not going to subscribe to that, because if I started thinking about the worst, I knew I would go off on this head spin and this tangent. The worst happened. I said, okay, I'm going to allow myself a pity party for 24 hours. And everybody who called to talk about it, and I talked with other practitioners, and I talked with friends of mine, and I said, just give ourselves 24 hours to have your pity party, and then we move on. Because life is still happening. The bill collectors are still going to call. You still got to pay your rent, your mortgage, your car note. All of these things are continue on. And you're going to get. And then I thought, okay, because of the person that this person is, my profession is in jeopardy. And that's the reality of it. So you all know the whole conversation. And one of the things was always pour into my business, so that if something should happen, I still have a revenue stream. So when that happened, and this is with the government, with our new administration coming in January, I'm at a very real crossroads where for the next 4 years, I may not have that profession. That may not be a revenue stream for me. And then I thought, do I really want to be in that kind of rat race anymore? Do I really want to be in corporate America anymore? And then, thinking about that, I actually started to feel lighter and lighter and lighter, because I already had my business. I already kept pouring into it. And I decided, let me start doing more, because when this happens, if this happens, I'm good. I can bounce.
Yeah, let me explain something, right? Let me explain my situation. And the way I see things is very simple for me. And I've lived this for the last 30, well, actually all my life, but basically the last 30 years under the gun. I
Yes.
didn't have I'm not going to say luxury. I didn't have the job where I was able to be in corporate America. I didn't have that. I didn't have, due to situations that I'm not going to speak on right now, but at the end of the day, I always had to make sure that I was good regardless. And what I mean by that is I had to be a creator.
Right.
I had to be a creator. Everything that I was able to get myself involved with in the last 30 years was self creation. And what I mean by that, opportunities arise, but I took those opportunities and I created something out of those opportunities that are unconventional.
Right.
Were unconventional. They wasn't the normal road traveled. And I pride myself on that type of thinking and that type of action, because anything that I face, I know I'm going to face it head on, and I know I can survive it in terms of financial and jobs and different things like that. I know that I can stand on my own 2 feet at any time and make it happen.
Exactly.
Now, you can call it hustle. I think it was just something that I was born with, and I just think it was something that it was my destiny to be that way. And there are times when there are like, well, it would have been a little easier if I were able to get that and retire and get that pension, all that kind of stuff. But that's not what it is.
Exactly.
That's not what it is. So being that it's not what it is, I'm not going to stand there and cry about it. What do I do about it? Now let's talk about this election. When this gentleman was in the office the first time, I paid him no attention. And I'm going to do the same thing this time. I'm going to pay him no mind. And I'm going to continue to do what I just told you. Survive, move on, create, and look at what I need to do as an individual to get through whatever we're going through, no matter who's in that office, no matter who is saying this, no matter who says don't do that. I'm going to do what I need to do to continue on to make myself the person that I need to be, with the money that I need to have, with all the things that I need to keep myself together. That's what I'm going to do. And that's the only way I approach it. See, I'm not into politics. I'm into self-preservation. And I was always taught a poor rat has one hole. A check from here and there is a check from everywhere. So, at the end of the day, my uncle taught me this, and he said, he was working for a Jewish law firm way back in the day, and they wanted to let him go. They said, "Well, your position, we no longer need that position. We found another way to do it. It's cost effective." You know what he did? He created
What?
another position at the same job that they didn't think about. And when
Mhm.
he created that position, they said, "We didn't think about that. We need that more than your last position." He
Mhm.
never got fired. So he always instilled that in my head. Instilled that you can create your own.
Exactly.
And
Mhm.
everybody's not in that position. Everybody doesn't have that type of push or ingenuity or just a creative mind or even the mindset to even do that. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with having a job. I think that's a great, great thing because my mother was always take the social service test, take the city test, do this, do that. That was her thing, and it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me.
Mhm.
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 I found my niche to do what I needed to do, and I'm going to continue to move on. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm someone that likes to create, and I also like to help others and give people jobs. That's what I like
Right.
to do. So it depends, but the opportunity though from the
Mhm.
experience, I learned what to do and I learned what not to do by
Not
trial and error. I went into
Exactly.
businesses not knowing anything. I started out in Medicaid business. I didn't know anything about it. I had to learn as I went along.
Mhm.
That's why I say once you make a decision and you learn from that experience and you're held accountable,
Yeah.
don't ever go back that way again if you know it wasn't the right thing for you. So that's kind of how I
Mhm.
look at things, man.
Exactly.
Right.
What about you, Tattletale?
I look at things. I look the same way. The same way.
Yeah.
Like I said, when you're positive, things just happen for you.
Exactly.
It's like when I built this house out here. I
Yeah, we
gave him
were
a
positive that you were crazy about building that house, but go ahead.
yeah.
I got
I gave them a nice down payment, and I paid for the HVAC system up front. So everything was fine. And 2 weeks later, they call me by my government name, but I want to say that they call me Mr. Title Tell. Everything looks fine. The only thing we have to see proof of income for your mortgage agreement. I didn't have no job at the time. I'm like, oh shoot, you know.
Hmm.
So I was going through the newspaper, and I saw this thing from the MTA revenue offices, and I applied, and I got it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And it was a well-paying job, and I did the job so well as a revenue officer. When I had the house built, I went to the chief and told him that I was going to resign because I'm moving to Pennsylvania. He says, "What, really?" He says, "Well, listen," he says, "you're a good officer and I don't want you to go." And he says, "Now, being that you live in Pennsylvania and you have a New York gun," he said, "will you stay here if I make it a way where the police station here will keep the gun for you?" I'm like, wow, he's going to this length. I said, all right, cool, I'll stay. And, you know, that's what it
Yeah,
is. But you got to be positive. You
yeah,
got to be positive. You can't
Ab-
you can't fall back and say, "Oh, woe is me, what I'm going to do." And no, because when
yeah.
you're positive, doors open.
Exactly.
They
exactly.
really do. They open.
Exactly. You got to believe. You got to believe that things are going to change and that things are going to be different. And if you stay positive, sooner or later something is definitely going to happen. Now, not just staying positive, you have to also put in some work. You have to do the
Yep.
work. You have to
Yep.
look in the
Yes.
newspaper. You have to talk
That's
to
right.
people that you know. You got to go take a
Mhm.
chance somewhere where you might not have thought about doing that before. You have to do these things,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to
Yep.
believe in the fact that it's going to get better. Look for the solution. You have to look for the solution and don't
Mm-hmm.
dwell in the problem because a lot of people dwell in the look, oh my god, what am I going to do, and they're going on and on days and days and days behind that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have time
Mm-hmm.
for that, man.
I don't have time for
Yep.
that
I
either.
really
Yep.
I
don't,
tell
man.
people,
Yeah,
the bill collectors don't
Absolutely.
care. Oh, it's me.
exactly,
For
They don't.
real.
exactly.
They
For
don't care.
real.
Your car still got to be paid on time. You still, you have to constantly think about going into the direction you should be going into. Now, I think Tattletale and I had a conversation about this. Is that I always said to him, I knew I would always be in the entertainment industry. I said, even if I was singing at this age, I would have still opened my management company I would still be doing what I am doing in my company, because that when I get up in the mornings and I think about my company, I know I'm supposed to be there. I know I'm supposed to help people. I know I'm supposed to be in school. I know I'm supposed to, and you may not know what the end goal is, but you know you're supposed to be on that road. And you know when it feels good, or even
absolutely.
you know that when
Yeah.
you get up, this is you're grinding
It feels
hard.
right. It feels right. You don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. I may not know what the end goal is, but I do know that the end goal will be bringing me much more money and much more things that I dream about doing than just staying in one place and doing the woe is me thing. That doesn't work.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on for 1 second, Dahlia. Hold on for 1 second. You're listening to the Les Boogie One-on-One show right here on Fresh Nation Radio. We're going to take a pause for the cause. We'll be right back.
Frankie Crocker.
I'm Bobby J, formerly of WWRL and WCBS FM in New York, and I'm proud to have known many of the great radio personalities of our era and to have been guided, nurtured, and mentored by many of them, especially Douglas Jocko Henderson, the ace from outer space, who used to go back and forth between his home in Philadelphia and New York City to work. My co-worker at Super 16, the man who a generation of rappers looked upon as their idol. Hank Spann, we called him the Soul Server. My teacher, my mentor, the Dean of Radio, Hal Jackson, who taught me there are no big I's and little U's, that it's nice to be important, well, it's more important to be nice. The Chief Rocker, Frankie Crocker, who came to New York City from WUFO in Buffalo to WWRL, WMCA, WLIB-FM, which became WBLS. The King of Rock and Roll, Alan Free, who was very important to me and my original vocal group, the Laddins, and whose style in my early days on the air I copied. Ralph Waldo P.D. Green from Washington, D.C., an Emmy Award winner for his television work, worked at WWRL's sister station WOL in D.C., and whose life and exploits were portrayed on the silver screen by Don Cheadle in the movie Talk to Me. Tommy Smalls, Dr. Jive at WWRL, whose shows at places like the Lowe State Theater and the world-famous Apollo Theater rivaled Alan Freed for attendance and impact. Ralph Cooper Sr., a man who I used to sit in on his radio show at WHOM and take requests for him. We called Ralph Cooper Dark Gable. You see, he was a movie star. He appeared in a film called The Duke is Tops that introduced to the world Lena Horne. Morning man extraordinaire at WWRL and WLIB, Eddie O.J., of whom the O.J.'s were named. In Philadelphia, the man with the goods was Georgie Woods. Also from Philadelphia, Reggie Levong. Reggie replaced Tommy Smalls as Dr. Jive at WWRL and later on would work at WNBC under the name Just John. In Chicago at WVON, which was owned by the Chess Brothers of Chess Records and whose call letters stood for the voice of the Negro, E. Rodney Jones, who had a profound impact on Don Cornelius of Soul Train fame. I worked in Memphis, Tennessee at WDIA, which was the home to not only one of the great radio personalities of Memphis, but he was a hit recording artist in his own right and alongside his daughter, Carla. Rufus Thomas, the big bad dog. We called him the Mouth of the South. These are just a few of the great radio personalities who unfortunately are no longer with us. But they left a lasting impact, particularly on people like me who, well, part of that last generation. We will never see their likes again. And coming up next, a look.
All right, we're back. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, the Les Boogie One-on-One show right here on Fresh Nation Radio. And our guests are in the house. We're going to shift now to bring on our special guests. Ladies and gentlemen, we are excited. And I'm going to bring them on right now. I'm going to bring them to the screen, and then we're going to introduce them. Here we are. Hey, how y'all doing?
Hey.
How you doing?
Doing good.
All right, okay. I see you got back. That's good. How you doing, Paula?
Doing well.
Good. This is Paula Atherton, ladies and gentlemen. And this is Mr. Lou Gimenez.
Hey,
All
hello.
right, all right. Welcome, welcome. You know, Miss Dahlia Manette, Paula. This is Dahlia Manette, and this is comedian Tattletale, my co-host.
Hi.
Hey,
Nice
how
to
you
see you
guys
both.
doing?
Doing
We
good.
actually, Paula and I spoke once.
Yes,
I
we
think it was
did.
when you were doing do you remember doing the duet with Nathan Mitchell? So,
Oh,
yes.
that's right. That's right. Nathan used to work with you, right?
Yes. He's gone
Yes.
on to a big talent company. I'm so proud of him. It is just phenomenal. So,
Yes.
All right,
Wonderful.
all right. So, Lou,
Yeah.
let me start off with my man Lou. Let's start off with Lou, man. Um, you know, as I was saying before off air, Lou, I want to thank you. Number one, Lou has a studio called the Music Lab, and my first experience of with our very small record label was going down to the Music Lab in Elmont, New York, and recording a gospel album by a gentleman called Modern Day David. I don't know if you remember that experience. I know you do, Lou.
I sure do.
He had 13 songs, and the sound was not correct. He came with 13 songs, and he thought it was banging. It wasn't banging. We had to strip down every song and redo them over. And Lou, I just want to thank you for your engineering skills, your expertise, your mentorship. I mean, you was doing vocal arrangements, and the fact that you are a guitarist extraordinaire, man. You know, a musician that understands music, and that really has lent a hand into helping us make the records that we made. And the biggest thing that I want to thank you for is you helped my son. You helped my son
Oh,
with his vocals, man, and he he was able to he really liked working with you down there because you knew how to get the best out of him and really bring him along, and he's doing real well. He sounded real good. So I just want to thank you for that, man.
Oh, my pleasure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Miss Atherton,
yes.
how are you? And we're hearing
the
so
Miss,
many great
don't say
things.
Miss Atherton, say the Miss Paula Atherton.
Okay, well, the Miss Paula Atherton.
Come
Let's
on,
do that.
come on.
That's okay.
Do this
That's
right.
okay.
We are hearing so many great songs over the years, and Watercolors is you know I mean I'm gonna take it back. CD 101. Let's keep. Why did they ever stop that? Because that's where all the music was at. But now Watercolors is here, and you are doing, as we say, you are doing your thing, and the records are phenomenal. You are a saxophonist and a flutist and a vocal, and you sing. You sing. I was listening the
Yeah.
other day. You got a really good voice,
Okay.
and to be a female in this business, you know, I know there's some others, but you are you. Tell us about how you got involved with playing the saxophone and where did this all start?
Well, I had really started as a singer that played flute, and I was
Oh, okay.
studying jazz. I was studying jazz in my late teens, early 20s, taking like Charlie Parker riffs and scatting them and playing them in every key and doing that kind of stuff. But I was, as I said, I was just singing and playing flute at the time. And I just felt like I needed another color to add to my improvisation.
Hmm.
And a lot of woodwind players go to other instruments in the family,
Okay.
so it was really natural to go to saxophone, and a lot of the fingerings are the same. So you just have to get past the embouchure and the reed mouthpiece routine. But at least some of the fingerings are the same, and I write a lot of stuff for saxophone now, sax, alto sax, soprano sax, or flute or vocals, depending on the
Hmm.
song that I'm writing.
Okay. And how long have you been when did you start? At what age did you start? How long has it been? Because it's been a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really started in elementary school.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Which was only 10 years ago. Yes.
Okay.
yeah, right, that's right.
Where you from originally, Paul? Where you from?
From New York, Massapequa.
Oh, Massapequa.
All
Okay.
right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I wanted to always ask you too, how did you meet? How did the two of you meet and form this union? How did that happen?
We met at a gig actually in West Point, and
Oh, really?
yeah,
Yeah.
he's the only one that wasn't scared and didn't run away.
Oh,
Men
okay.
are intimidated by
That's
women
not
with
really, that's
saxophones.
not
That
really
is
what
the truth.
happened.
You ever see
You ever see the movie Sleepless in Seattle?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you remember, like, there's a scene where, like, Tom Hanks drops off this girl that he's dating in the airport, and then Meg Ryan comes walking out, and he gets this look on his face,
Uh-oh.
and he just starts following her, right? I
Uh-huh.
call that the dead meat look. I had it the first
Women
time I
might
met
call
her
that stalking, but
I had that the first time I met her in West Point.
Wow. Wow.
I was done.
Now both of you on the same gig or
Yeah.
Okay.
and you were playing with obviously someone else at the time, Lou. Who were you with?
Well, I mean, we were doing back in those days. We were doing like some corporate gigs and private parties and stuff like that, and it was one of those gigs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And
So
what
made
happened
you
then?
all? I'm sorry, Les.
Go ahead. By all
What,
means.
Paula, what made you and Lou as well? What made you decide to actually step into the arena with going on to watercolors, really becoming public? Because you could have stayed just a corporate band or a wedding band. What really made you decide to put your foot in the water and say, "I've got something that the world needs to hear"?
It was an evolution, really. Like, what started the whole ball rolling with my recordings is that I started to write.
Okay.
I have a traditional jazz background. I can sing and play straight ahead jazz, but I wanted to make something that was uniquely my own. So I didn't know that I was going to be a writer, but I just started writing. And that's the whole thing with, like you mentioned, watercolors. A lot of the stuff you're listening to, the artist wrote,
Right.
or they wrote with their producer. It's original music, a lot of it. They do covers as well, but a lot of artists write their own music. So, you know, the fact that I started to do that, then all of a sudden it was really mine. I wrote a song that was either about something that happened in my life, and it was a vocal tune. It had lyrics, or I heard an idea for a saxophone tune, and we recorded that. So I really would have done what I was doing whether or not I became successful at all, because that's what's in my heart, and I want to do what I love. I was
Right.
trying to get on watercolors for years. I have friends that their first single from their first release, bam, right on watercolors. I recorded 5 albums before I got one song on there.
Wow.
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 And I got my first #1 on Billboard on my 6th album.
Wow.
I think that's a lesson to learn, is that persistence. You have to just keep pushing forward, and persistence is key.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is when you're doing these other gigs, when you're playing private parties and all that kind of the corporate stuff and all of that. In our case, both of us were still writing and trying to do music all during that time. You know,
Right.
it just it's never really like the kind of thing where you're not doing that. It's like you have to do the other thing to pay the bills.
Exactly.
And then you go back to doing your writing and your recording and all of that. I mean, I got into being a recording engineer because I was a songwriter myself. I mean, that's how it started for me, you know. And then when I met her, it just seemed that as a logical thing for me, that I felt like I could have more success working on her music and trying to make her career happen than me continuing to try to do like a rock thing, especially when the music really changed, like in the early 90s. You know, it just became like music that I wasn't really interested in.
Right.
So with Paula, you know, I saw an opportunity to work on music that I thought was great, and you know, and be able to put my 2 cents into it and help her, since I was already recording and producing, you know, to help her, you know, get her vision across.
Right. Right. I was going to ask you too, when engineering, when did you start that? Before the music lab, you worked somewhere else as well, right?
Yeah, I started working in a recording studio that was in the city called Interface.
Interface.
Yeah, I mean, I used to bring them, I used to go there and bring them my demos that I would make. I had this little home recording set up, and I would write these songs, and they liked one of my songs and they recorded it. I wound up playing guitar on it. And then later on, what happened was I kept bringing the guy who owned the studio my demos, and he would say to me, you know, your demos sound too good for what you have. I think you have an ear for learning how to be an engineer and all of that. And so he offered me a carrot I couldn't resist, which was he said, I'll let you use the studio when it's not being used.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I started working there. In the last couple of years that I was there, I got to work a lot with Keith Diamond,
Oh.
who wrote Suddenly, did Billy Ocean, worked with Donna Summer, Mick Jagger, Jeff Beck, worked on a whole bunch, did some music for the movie Top Gun. And that was a real learning experience and kind of an honor. The guy was really smart guy, really great musician, and we got along great. And when he passed, that was kind of around the time that I was looking to to kind of do my own thing. And that's what happened.
Wow. That's great.
That's how the music lab started. And I met her, and I met Paula, and
the rest is history, huh?
And the rest is history, right? Yeah.
Wow. And
Now,
Paula,
Paula, let
you
me ask you
worked
this. You said
ahead,
that
Lily.
good. You want to say something?
No, I was just saying, Paula, you worked with some greats, and I know that you worked with the great Nick Coleon, who is forever in my heart. I call him the Godfather. Tell us what that was like. 'Cause he's an unusual. Well, he was an unusual character.
Yeah. Nick was a dear friend of mine. Honestly, I still can't wrap my brain around him not being here. It's really a shock. Nick was a really magnanimous guy. He helped everybody, so many people. His wife or girlfriend taught at a school, and he would go there and give guitar lessons for free. They put on a play every spring, The Passion of Christ. He helped so many people with their recording careers. As a matter of fact, the first song of mine that got on watercolors, it's a song called My Song for You. And Nick Coleon wrote it for me.
Wow.
And now it's got almost 5 million streams on Spotify.
Wow.
Wow.
Very nice.
Fantastic. And for people who don't know who Nick Coleon is, please, he was an American guitarist that was an international success. And everyone who came in the presence of Nick was just awed by his just humanity. He was funny. He
really very fun. Really funny.
And he could take a joke and he could give a joke. Let's just put it that way. And
You're funnier than me? You're funnier than me? I don't like that. I'm a comedian here. I don't like that. I don't like that. Stepping on toes now.
Interesting. Now, let me ask you this: with the song. Now, you said you had 6 albums before you were able to get a number one.
Yeah.
When you got that number one, how did you feel at that time? Was you relieved? I mean, explain that, because I know it had to be a real trial. Just keep putting it out, What was that like?
After years and years of grinding, it was the best thing. I mean, first of all, it happened during COVID.
Oh, wow.
So we released Can You Feel It was my first number one, the title track of my 6th album. So it was released in January 2020. And, in New York, it was real bad, right?
Yeah.
Tons of people dying every day. We look at the TV and see what's going on. We're like, oh my God, are we ever going to work again? And this single just flew up the chart. And it was number one for 3 weeks on Billboard, 4 weeks on the Smooth Jazz Network, and
3 or 4 weeks on Media Base.
Yeah,
also.
on Media Base as well. And it was just it was a miracle because it was out there getting played, so I could make some airplay royalties I couldn't
Right.
make any money. Otherwise, I couldn't
Right.
do
Wow.
anything, you know?
Wow.
So it was a godsend. And before that time, it was funny because I hadn't even had a top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember I was out walking my dog, Sammy, and I came back. We were supposed to finish One Night in Madrid, which is on Can You Feel It, the
Mm-hmm.
opening track. And my radio guy called me while I was out, and when he wanted to tell me something exciting, he would kind of beat around the bush at first. You know, he'd be like talking about something going, you know, talking about somebody who got a top 10 and this and that. I'm like, Dave, why are you telling me all this stuff? He goes, oh, because I'm talking to another person that got a top 10. I'm like, what do you mean?
Ah,
Can you feel
nice.
it just hit the top 10? So then I came down to record One Night in Madrid, and I was just like,
Very
That was
good.
actually after you knew it was number one, though.
oh, that was, I thought
Right.
you said it was the top
That
10.
was after you know
Right.
it was number one.
All right,
Yeah.
now listen, hold on for 1 second. I wanna play something for you. I want to play something for you guys. Hold on for 1 second.
Thank you, Richard. Hey, everybody.
All right.
That was hot.
Okay, okay.
That was hot.
That was nice.
That
I
was
like
hot.
that. I love that.
Oh
I
yeah,
was
that was
I love
hot.
excited
that.
by good music. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that song because I had that queued up. Isn't that something? You mentioned that
Well, see
song,
Mm.
that?
Mhm.
My
and see,
antennas were up. That's right.
there you go. There you go.
So do
That
you
night.
feel the pressure now that, you know, 5, 10 years ago, there weren't a lot of female saxophonists and flautists. Do you feel a pressure now because there are a lot of other ones in the market?
No, because everybody's different.
Mhm.
There's a million
Mhm.
guys doing everything, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
But that's always, I always put that out there because that's the question that, as women we're asked, like, okay, do you feel the pressure? There's your music is
I feel
different
that.
from everyone else. And I think what's special about you is that you do flute and saxophone. You're a woman that does flute and saxophone, and you're the only female artist that I've seen do that. And that sets you apart from everyone else.
Well, as I said before, I would have done what I do anyway, whether or not I had success
Mhm.
with my own music. So I'm just thankful that I had some success to help me be able to do what I do. You know,
Yeah.
um, everybody's got their own voice, their own
Mhm.
sound, like their own fingerprint. So
Mhm.
the music that I make is not going to be like any other women because they're going to make their own. So
Right.
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 there's
Right.
room for
For
everybody,
everybody.
There you
and
go.
people's creativity is inspiring. I love when I hear someone's music and it inspires me. It's the best.
Right.
Right. Now let me ask you this: Who did you look at? I know you said Charlie Parker, people like that, but who do you look at now? Who do you like now? That's currently here now, and then who was some of your inspirations as you was growing in your music career?
Well, when I started to study jazz, it was Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Lambert Hendricks and Ross, Charlie Parker, Cannonball Adderley, Hubert
Mm,
Laws, you know,
Mhm.
study the greats. That's
right.
one of the best ways to learn.
Hmm.
As far as who I listen to today, of course, I love David Sanborn, and it's terrible that we lost him.
Yes.
But he was always one of my favorites. I listen to all kinds of music. I listen to pop music too. I really like Jared Lawson. I
Hmm.
don't
Oh
know
yeah.
if you,
I love Jared Lawson. Yes.
yeah. Michelle Obama said something about him online. I saw it. I was like,
Oh, really?
whoa.
Okay.
He is an untapped talent that is phenomenal. His harmonies, the way he just presents the music, and
Yeah.
whether it's his own or a cover tune is great. It's wonderful.
He writes like Stevie Wonder.
Yes, he does.
It
Yes, he
very,
does.
it reminds you of Stevie's writing style. He's
Mhm.
not copying him, he's got his own thing, but it's
Hmm.
reminiscent of that, and it's really great. Yeah,
Well,
so I think it's important to keep listening to different kinds of music too. It just
Yeah.
gives you more input.
right. I think what's great as well is that you're starting to hear jazz come on to Heart and Soul, and they're really starting to finally open the floodgates to go to cross genres, which is important because, like you said, we listen to all kinds of music. There are times I get in there and I want to listen to some rock. The times I want to get in there, I want to listen to classical. I grew up with classical music. Times I want to get in there and listen to my jazz.
Yeah,
And so being able to go between all of those different channels on Sirius XM. I don't even think I listen to regular radio anymore. But hearing, I could be listening to October London and all of a sudden they'll play Boney James in October London and it sounds great and they're able to cross over. Or, Najee with Eric Benet or Kenny Lattimore and they're finally crossing genres. I get excited by it because it opens up the world to people who wouldn't necessarily hear that music and understand that you can be in any genre and whatever sounds good sounds good.
Yeah.
And it
Right.
Mhm.
you know.
Exactly.
So,
Two kinds of music, good and
mhm.
bad. I mean,
Right.
Exactly.
it's good, it's good.
We unfortunately seem to be hearing a lot of bad, so it's always nice to start
Well,
because mumble rap was around for a couple of
Yeah,
years.
yeah, they can leave that. They can leave that. That's you can leave that. I don't even like that. You
Yeah.
know. But what is the difference? I mean, I hear about the comparison between, smooth jazz, whatever, and of course rap and what's popular. Why is it that smooth jazz itself has taken a back seat to these other genres of music? Why is that? What do you think
Well,
that is? Why it's not as popular amongst the masses as it, or maybe it doesn't appear to be? I'm just don't quote me, but I'm asking a question.
well,
What do you
jazz,
think?
jazz and classical music have been always the most unpopular, right?
Okay,
Um, and what happened, back in like 2009, around 2009, 2010, there was a lot of radio stations across the country. So when I was like mailing stuff out to radio stations,
hmm,
the first time it was like about 80 stations I had to send to. But
Mm.
all of a sudden they started flipping and losing their sponsors and, going to different types of programming completely.
right,
So there wasn't that driver anymore. Like in this format, the radio is always the driver. So if you had a show and you had a radio station behind it playing ads, talking about you, DJs talking about you, playing your music, you're going to have a great show. People are going to come because
right,
they know about you, they know about the music, they know about the show.
yeah, especially when you travel across the country, like how do people know who you are if they haven't heard you somewhere, right?
exactly.
So there's always that, that element of it. And I think also with the contemporary jazz thing, I think for a while it got so formulaic
Mhm.
that they kind of lost a lot of their audience. And
Mm,
I think that since what has happened now is there's a pretty big influx of new blood.
Right.
There's a lot of younger artists who have come into this, and I think that has helped it somewhat.
hmm,
But when it's look, music has always been this thing that when we were young, there was the element of danger that attracted us to a
hmm,
certain degree. You know what I
right,
mean?
right, right.
And there was because it was music our parents didn't like, or
Yeah, don't
what-
play that. Don't play
don't
that
play
in
that stuff in the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I remember my dad, like he was big on Latin music, and he was big on like Frank Sinatra, and he loved Nat Cole,
hmm, hmm.
but but then he was the guy who bought like the Supreme Sing Holland Dozier Hollander, and
Ah,
he played that
Mhm.
record in the house like relentlessly. He loved that
Right.
stuff.
wow.
So I think I just think that people go through different styles, and where we're unfortunately at right now in music is kind of not always in like a really great place. In a way, the computer has opened the door for everybody, and sometimes that's not necessarily a good thing.
Exactly. I agree. But I will say the best thing that happened, the best and the worst thing that happened, let's put it that way. The best and the worst thing that happened um, for recent times is COVID. And it forced artists to figure out a better way to get their music out there. And so now we had YouTube, which exploded. We had, the live concerts on YouTube and the live concerts on Facebook, and people were able to experiment. So you had jazz artists experimenting in rock and things that the record labels weren't necessarily allowing them or wanted them to do. And so you got to see a plethora of new musicians come out with music. Who would have heard of violinists coming out and playing jazz, or taking a Jill Scott song and playing it? That wasn't heard of before COVID because that's not what the record labels wanted them to do. So now they're
Well,
doing these
even
things.
even
And
in that, there was a period of time, like in the 70s, where that kind of thing was going on.
right.
You know, there were back then. I think what's happened to music is it's gotten more and more compartmentalized.
Hmm.
When I was a kid, I remember like, you'd put on you'd put on WMCA and you'd hear the Beatles, and then you'd hear Frank Sinatra, and then you'd hear Cannonball Adderley, and then
Right.
you'd hear the Supremes or the Temps, or you'd hear there was all this music. And
Right.
now it's like this station plays this station plays this
Right.
so it's
Hmm.
become harder for people to become kind of you know cross-pollinated,
Or educated.
or and look,
First,
it's even kind of happened in our politics, right? Like it used to be that before, there was a lot of there weren't a million different places where you could hear only what you wanted to hear,
right.
which
Mm.
is kind of what's happened now. you know
Hmm.
like you have your Fox News, and they tell their followers what they want to hear.
Right.
And then you
Right.
have
Mhm.
MSNBC, and they kind of do a similar thing. So it's you have this whole thing that goes on that is like that didn't used to be, which I think has really led to our polarization in politics, and also our polarization in music. People
Right.
are not exposed to all of this other music.
They don't even have music education in schools anymore half the time.
I know
Yeah.
about that.
And
Yeah,
then what
that's
happens,
right.
right? The kids get in
I,
Mhm.
trouble,
it's crazy.
right?
I
School
think it's crazy.
shootings go
Right.
up.
Yeah,
And
Paula
I'll
always
just say
says,
this, for a lot of, and I was one of those students who in the beginning did not do well in math. I was not, I just, it just wasn't clicking until I actually, my brothers encouraged me to learn music and not just sing it, but learn what notes are, how to do the
yeah,
beats and what they all meant. And then math clicked. And so there is that connection. And there are
Mm.
scientific facts that show music helps to increase your learning in other
Mhm.
fields, in
Yeah.
science, in math, you know,
Language.
and language and history, because that connection is there in everything. And it's so important to have that in the schools. And I feel sorry for students who go through elementary school and junior high, and then they finally get to high school and they're exposed to some kinds of music. They've
Well,
missed a whole part of
yeah.
learning and capabilities if your parents can't take you to private lessons. So,
Yeah.
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 oh,
I mean, Paula always says whenever there's like a tragedy, like a mass shooting or something terrible like
mhm,
that, she says clearly these were people not practicing their instruments. Because really,
hey,
like if you were
yeah,
if you had that discipline in your life,
mhm,
it kind of puts you in a different place. I know for me, like, I got into music. I liked it even before then, but I got really into music, like way back when. I'm much older than her. So I saw the Beatles in 1964. That was it for me.
mhm.
That was like, before that, I wanted to be a scientist. After that, I wanted to play the guitar. And that's literally what happened, and
Right.
and
It's funny.
unfortunately, a lot of times nowadays people don't get that kind of exposure to the
Right.
music thing, and the thing of actually working on learning to play an instrument, because it's not easy.
No,
you
it is
know
not.
to
Not at
really
all.
learn music, even if you're a singer, to really learn your craft, to really study it,
Exactly.
is a serious endeavor. It's not
It's
it's
years,
yeah,
years of studying.
yep,
Wow.
It's a lifelong thing being a singer and an instrumentalist. You have to constantly grow, improve, pick apart what you do and look at it, think about it in different ways.
yeah,
Mhm.
That's how you come up with something new. Nobody wants to hear the same record over and over again, right?
Exactly.
Uh,
It's
It's funny
uh,
because when I was a performer and we would do shows, and I tell people all the time, a really good show when the artist gets off of the stage and they're exhausted because it's your whole body on stage, even if you're only playing an instrument. And Tattletale used to see me come off stage and I could barely talk after doing what, 90-minute set, 60-minute set, 90-minute set. And he's like, what's wrong? I said, nothing. It actually was a great show. If I walk off that stage and I'm exhausted, it was a good show because you're
Well,
Well,
put
talking,
it
nothing
all
but
out
great
there.
show.
right. You're
You put
talking
it all
your
out there.
whole body. So I think that if we could figure out a way to bring music back into the schools, it is healing for kids. It is an
Mhm.
escape for kids, and it is a learning experience.
Well, now the
You know,
the new guy who's coming in wants to shut down the Department of Education.
yes,
Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
that's
Yep.
crazy.
yeah.
yeah. He said that's one of his
His goals, uh-huh.
one of his agendas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to do as many workshops as I can in schools.
Mhm.
That's great.
I
That's
I
good.
represent Dakota Sax, and if I'm in a city doing a show, a lot of times they'll help me get a
Right.
workshop set up in the local school, and so I can work with the kids, try teach them how to play the blues scale, how to improvise a little bit.
And you're also on the board of that charity, F2F.
Yeah, I'm on the board of F2F in Houston. We raise money to get instruments for kids that can't afford them.
Nice.
Wow,
Wow.
that's great.
You know,
That's great. That's great.
I remember coming up in school myself. I actually played. I played the trumpet, and I read the music. They taught us how to read the music,
That's
and
right.
I was in the fourth, fifth, sixth grade, and I was a pretty good trumpet player. I had one guy that was a little better than me. His name was Daryl Thomas. Never forget him. He would always get the better parts than me, but I was good. I was good. And then I went on to junior high school, and I switched instruments, and I was in the orchestra, and I started playing the timpani drums. And I don't know
Mm.
why I changed from reading music to doing that. I don't know why it changed, but you know why? I know why it changed, because I think, like you just said, you have to practice it. And I think it was a lot easier for me to bang on them drums than to learn those notes. You know, let's be honest, and that's why I stopped doing it, because I was pretty good. So my whole point to that is that I'm still in music, but I'm in it a different way. That same love from the beginning is still there.
Yeah.
I was in a group when I was in a 5-man, there's 5 of us teenagers, and we performed all over the city. We were in all the talent shows. We won all the talent. It was like a little Jackson 5 type thing going on, right? So when I tell people that, they laugh because they can't believe that I was actually doing that. But I was
I've
really,
heard you
really
sing,
involved in this
Wes. I
thing.
know you can sing.
I can sing a little bit. Not as
You
good
can
as I
sing.
used to, but I can sing a
You can
little bit.
sing.
His
And
son runs circles around him, but we won't see it.
no, now you don't know. She doesn't know about me. She don't know. But
A
anyway,
little
You get it from somewhere, right?
there's all kind of ways to be involved. That's the point that I'm
Mhm.
making, and
Yes.
and my contribution is to give artists a platform. By putting on shows and concerts and showing up in communities and giving back. That's my way of giving back. And then also a lot of independent artists. There's a lot of great artists out there who nobody will ever know, will
Yeah.
never hear. And I try to give them an opportunity, even if it's just a small venue, a small show, just opening up for someone.
Sure.
That's what I like to do. My
Mhm.
company, we started that simply because we wanted to give bands and singers an opportunity to be heard. That's why we
That's
started it.
wonderful.
So that's still our mission, is to make sure that happens. Every show we do, I don't care if there's known people on there, there's going to be someone from the neighborhood community that's going to open up so that they can get that opportunity. So that's why I'm behind the scenes now. I'm not going to get out there and sing. I'm not going to try none of that stuff. But I'm going to give my contribution the best way I can,
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, Paula, when you finally said to yourself, and I don't know if you've gotten there yet, what was that wow moment in your career where you said, "Hey, I think I got it. I think I'm here." What took place in your mind, and what was the experience, and what was the event that you said, "Yo, I'm here. I think we got this."
I'm never going to say that.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay, what was a highlight? Let's put it like this. What was a highlight? Some of the highlights of your career thus far.
Playing a week at the Blue Note with Hank Jones.
Mm.
Oh,
Playing in Portugal last year in Faro,
Wow.
Portugal.
I
Nice.
was there.
Yeah, the first night we had a jam session and everybody got called downstairs. We were all exhausted. I took a red eye to get there, so I've been up for
Yeah.
like 2 days. So everybody's like, "Okay, we'll go to the jam session."
Yes.
So it was me, Gerald Albright, Andy Snitzer, Michael Paolo, and who's the other person? It was one other saxophone player that I'm not thinking of right now, but it was ridiculous. Everybody it was ridiculous. It was really great. Um, that was one of the highlights. Playing in Spain in 2019, we
Mhm.
played at the Maria Guerrero Theater in Madrid, and this old theater with red velvet seats. It's gorgeous.
It's like a beautiful opera house.
Right.
Wow.
It probably was at one point. Yeah.
Wow.
And the people there, just like in Europe, if you play jazz, they treat you the way they treat sports stars here.
Right.
I
Like
think Luke
It's a
told me
big
that.
deal.
Yes.
yeah.
It's a big deal. It's like you're the queen, you're the king. It's like, oh my God, you know.
Wow.
That's why
So
a lot of people
everybody's-
move over to Europe. They appreciate the music a lot more
Oh
than
yeah, they would
here.
never cut music and art in schools.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So
The
what's
people,
next
some
for
of the
you?
women were. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying what go ahead and finish your sentence, but I want to know what's
Oh.
what's coming up for you.
I was going to say that some of the women at the Maria Guerrero Theater in Madrid were coming up to me after the show, telling me that I was like a role model for them. I was like, I am.
No way.
You
Hey.
even like know who I am, but you know, if I inspired anybody and help them in some kind of way, that's that's what we strive to do through our music. When people come up and tell me they came to my show and they weren't feeling great and I lifted them up, for me, that's it. That
That's
doesn't
it.
get
Yeah.
better than that.
That's
Yeah.
it.
So
Yep.
what is next for you? Where are you going to be appearing?
I have a holiday show coming up on December 14th at the Addicts Theater in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm also playing on December 6th at Blues Boulevard in Greenville, South Carolina.
Mhm.
And we're playing a Valentine's Day show that Lou's playing on with me at the Addicts Theater as well in Norfolk, Virginia, February 15th.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. I want to show something very quickly. Let me find it. And this is, you'll see what I'm doing here. I'm always up to something. Hold on a moment.
That's what I heard about you.
Here it is.
Always up to something. Yes.
Here it is. Wait a minute. No, I don't want that. Not that. I
That's
gotta
not
bring
it.
Yeah, that's it.
But
But that's not the way I want to see it. Let me do it this way. But you continue to talk, and I'll
Yeah.
I'll
Just-
find it.
Yeah, Lou and Paul, I'm telling you, you guys are like, the new Ashford and Simpson. The husband and wife team working
Wow,
together,
that's pretty
making
heavy
those
compliment
hits.
there. Wow.
Yeah, no, really, that flute plate was like really good. That is exceptional, and like I love flutes. I remember all the flute players and. Oh man, remind me of like Bobby Humphrey when she, Satin Doll way back in the day. Remember?
That dog, yeah.
Yes, I think Bobby's
Bobby
still
Humphrey.
with us.
Yes, she
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Harlem River Drive and all. Yeah. But yeah,
They,
I mean, it was.
they don't play flute on the radio that much, and I released a single in 2012 or 2013, and it did get played. It didn't get on Sirius or anything like that, but
Mhm.
my radio promoter was like, "You sure you want to release a flute tune?" I'm like, "I wrote it for flute." Maybe play it on a different instrument because I think that they might play it on the radio. What if they don't play it on the radio and I just screwed up my own song? I don't want to do that.
Wow.
It was
Yeah.
called Herbie, and it was kind of inspired by Memphis Underground, Herbie Mann's tune.
Okay. Yeah. I remember him. He had that big hit years ago. That hijack song. Remember? I think it was in the '70s. I started listening to Herbie Mann.
I'm not sure I ever heard that one. Memphis Underground was like pretty popular tune, and it's funny because it's even in my jazz book. It's only like 8 measures long. It's a very
Mhm.
short
I
song.
gotta check. I might have it.
But the name of the tune was Herbie. So was I going to play that on a different instrument? It was meant for flute, right?
Right.
So
Now, Paula, tell us about your latest single that's out now. I think it's Moonlight Drive. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Tell us what inspired that, and tell us about that song.
Well, I was looking for a producer to work with, and my radio promoter suggested Nelson Braxton uh, because he was on a steady gig for a long time, and that kind of ended. So he was looking to do more production.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked a little bit, and he came up with the idea for the track, and we co-wrote the melody, and seems people really like it. It got released on June 10th, and it's still like it's
7 on Billboard
it's
this
7
week.
on Billboard and
Wow.
4 on Media Base and 4 in the Smooth Jazz Network. So
Yeah. And Sirius played the hell
Nice.
out of it.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was the
played-
second most played song for 3 weeks in a row.
Wow.
Serious.
Wow. That's phenomenal.